Exposed, 3 haunted wilderness horrors with spine-chilling secrets that will terrify you forever. Sarah felt a shiver down her spine as she stared at the dark silhouette of the trees surrounding Willow Creek. The quaint town, with its picturesque charm, concealed a dark secret buried deep within its woods. She had moved here, with 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Jacob, to escape her abusive husband, seeking solace in a modest home. But the whispers among the townsfolk, seemingly innocent, tinged her thoughts with dread. They spoke of spirits that lingered in the shadows, sinister tales that sent shivers racing down her arms. Upon arriving, she noticed the unnerving calm that enveloped her new home. It felt like the world outside had hushed, as if even the wind was afraid to disturb the stand of towering pines. Initially, there was excitement in the air, a promise of adventure. Yet, as the days turned into unease, Sarah began to notice something alarming: peculiar markings on her children's arms. They looked like scratches, almost like warnings etched into their skin. Her gut twisted with anxiety, but she pushed it aside, determined to keep her family happy. "Let's go play outside," she insisted, dragging Emma and Jacob into the yard. Their laughter rang through the cool evening air, but soon enough, it was overshadowed by something eerie. "Mommy, we met a new friend," Emma chirped, eyes wide with wonder. "He wants to show us the secret place in the woods." The warmth of the moment quickly faded, replaced by a chill that gripped Sarah's heart. "What friend?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Let us stay here." But the words tumbled into the void. The wind twisted through the trees, carrying whispers that sent shivers straight to her bones. At night, she lay awake, listening to those murmurs, shadows moving just beyond her vision. They seemed to call her name in a way that felt all too personal. When Charlie, the retired sheriff next door, offered to show her the eerie sights of Willow Creek, her bravado flickered. "You know, the townsfolk talk about the old mill and the lost lake," he remarked casually, the tension evident in his voice. But as he spoke, she caught a flicker of something beneath the calm veneer: fear. "The forbidden caves, they say nobody returns the same if they venture too deep." Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, paranoia seeped into Sarah's veins. The horror stories hung over her like a thick fog. Days passed, and the children's laughter twisted into something unsettling. Each outing, an adventure turned nightmare. The whispers escalated, and a fearful pull dragged at her mind. One evening, as dusk settled with a heavy hush, Emma went missing. Frantic, Sarah searched for her, heart pounding, knowing deep down that the forest held something sinister. When she finally found her daughter, confusion clouded Emma's gaze. It was as if the light had dimmed in her eyes. "The friend wanted to play hide-and-seek, Mommy," Emma exclaimed, and a cold, hard fear settled in Sarah's stomach. She saw something in Emma that frightened her, a flicker of something darker than she could comprehend. As shadows lengthened, the looming presence seemed more evident than ever. For the first time, Sarah felt true isolation, a creeping sense of dread worming its way into her mind. Who were they really up against? The lurking evil in the woods, or perhaps the neighbor with his unsettling calm? And as darkness swallowed the last sliver of light, she knew she was standing on the precipice of a nightmare. What awaited her in the woods, and who would she lose next? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a deep indigo hue across the landscape. Shadows lengthened and stretched, twisting into grotesque shapes. Sarah stood frozen at the window, her heart pounding as she replayed Emma's words in her mind. The friend wanted to play hide-and-seek. What kind of friend? A sickening chill chased the warmth from her bones like a predator stalking its prey. The house felt alive, each creak of the floorboards echoing like whispers threading through her tension. The children's laughter had turned to silence, the kind of silence that clutched at her throat. Jacob was upstairs, diligently building a fortress with his toys, but Emma had drawn closer to the woods ever since they arrived. The pull of whatever spirit captured her daughter's imagination now threatened to drag them all down into the depths of a horror they couldn't escape. "Emma!" Sarah called, her voice trembling. There was no answer. Panic surged like ice through her veins. She rushed to the door, flinging it open against the sudden rush of cold air. "Emma!" Each step was heavy, the ground beneath her almost seemed to resist her passage, pulling her back, whispering warnings of the darkness ahead. The trees loomed, tall and menacing, their gnarled branches swaying as if alive. She could feel the air thickening around her as she entered the forest. The muffled sounds of the town faded, replaced by the rustling of leaves murmuring secrets. As she moved deeper, Sarah spotted something white glimmering beneath a low-hanging branch. Fear seized her heart. Was it a piece of her daughter's clothing? She stumbled toward it, heart racing, breath hitching in her throat as she knelt to pick it up. It was just a scrap of fabric, a fragment of a dress, but not Emma's. Suddenly, a soft giggle floated from behind the trees, a laugh all too familiar yet tainted. "Mommy, come find me." The sound made her blood run cold. Emma's voice echoed like a twisted version of a lullaby, inviting yet laced with malice. Sarah jerked her head in the direction of the sound, adrenaline kicking in. "I'm coming." As she ran toward the laughter, she felt it. Shadows danced at the corners of her vision, faces twisting in the darkness. Each sink into the earth felt deeper, heavier, as though the ground itself was urging her to turn back. She pressed on, adrenaline fueling her courage, but dread settled into her stomach. The trees seemed to close in, their trunks like sentinels, watching. "Emma!" she called, her voice now edged with panic. The laughter morphed into mocking claps, rasping against the silence. "Where are you?" She stumbled into a clearing, the trees parting like a grim curtain. Her breath caught in her throat. There, at the foot of a towering tree, stood her daughter facing away, hair fluttering as if a breeze played through it. "Emma!" She screamed again, but the girl didn't turn. With a burgeoning sense of horror, Sarah stepped closer, urged by an unseen force that was both terrifying and compelling. As she reached out a trembling hand, a shudder passed through the girl, and suddenly she turned. But it wasn't Emma's face that stared back at her. No, what stood before Sarah twisted and distorted, a grotesque mockery of her daughter. The eyes were hollow, dark, and something malicious flickered in their depths. The laughter now echoing around her was no longer joyful, but a cacophony of torment, enveloping her like a thick fog. Stumbling backward, Sarah's heart raced. The shadows seemed to creep closer, the trees drawing breath as if preparing to close in. She knew instinctively that whatever this creature was, her daughter was gone, and in her place was a vessel of pure malice. "Run!" A voice pierced through the laughter. It was Charlie, stepping from the shadows, a wild look in his eyes. "Get out of here. They're coming." She didn't need to be told twice. With a jolt of terror, Sarah took off toward the path, calling out for Jacob, desperate to escape this nightmare. The woods seemed to pulse around her, demons lurking behind every tree, and as she ran, the laughter faded into a chilling promise. She'd have to confront whatever had taken Emma before it consumed her entire family. But as the darkness closed in, she couldn't shake the feeling something was already deeply rooted within them. It was far from over. What would she discover when she returned home? As Sarah dashed through the thickening shadows, her heart pounded a frantic rhythm, thundering in her ears. The trees loomed menacingly above her, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers eager to snatch her away. "Jacob!" she gasped, fear choking her voice. The desperation to find her son pushed her faster, each step fueled by raw panic. The path narrowed, the underbrush gripping her like hands pulling her back. She could almost feel the creatures of the darkness, lurking just out of sight, breathing in time with her shallow gasps. The laughter echoed, still taunting, piercing, and everywhere. She stumbled into a clearing, its light strangely dim as if it were untouched by the sun's last rays. A sensation of wrongness hung in the air. Here, the grass was slick with something chilling. Her mind hesitated, unwilling to acknowledge the possibility. Ignoring it, she called out again. "Jacob." No answer came, only a flicker of movement behind her, something darting at the edge of her vision. Was it just a trick of the shadows? A hallucination born from fear? With a shudder, she decided. No more hesitation. She turned toward the sound, but there was nothing, only silence, thick and pregnant with dread. The absence of noise sometimes screamed louder than shouts. "Please, let him be safe," she muttered, biting back tears. In that moment, it hit her, fear wasn't her only enemy anymore. There was something much darker in the woods, and it wanted more than just them. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl that rumbled from the depths of the forest. It grew louder, each note filled with malice, reaching out for her. Trembling, she felt the dread wrap around her like barbed wire, digging into her skin as she turned to run once again. "Hold on." Charlie's harsh whisper cut through the chilling noise, pulling her from her terror. He emerged from the darkness with wide, terrified eyes, scanning the trees as if they were alive. "They're everywhere. We need to find Jacob now." His face was pale, shadowed with fear that mirrored her own. "Where is he?" Sarah asked, voice trembling, urgency spilling through every syllable. "Back at the house." Charlie gasped. "He was playing too, and he kept saying Emma was with him. Told him not to." "Then you've got to help me," she cried. "We have to get him." "No. We need to leave. Now." He gripped her arm, his hold fierce but his voice less confident. "Those things, they want a family. They're not just taking kids. They want everything we are." Sarah's breath quickened as dread settled heavily in her chest. They had already lost Emma, could they afford to lose Jacob too? The darkness tugged at her, hefty tendrils of horror wrapping around her mind, blurring the edges of reason. Fear warred against maternal instinct, leaving her dizzy. "Sarah." Jacob's voice broke through the chaos, high-pitched in terror echoing from the woods beyond. "Mommy." Her heart dropped. "Jacob." She screamed, launching back into the trees. She had to find him. Cold air clawed at her skin as she plunged forward, ignoring Charlie's calls to stop. "Come back. It's too dangerous." But something was drawing her towards that sound, and she ran faster than she thought possible, a magnetic pull compelling her through the dark. Each rush of leaves behind her felt closer, like footprints of something stalking her. "Stay away." Jacob shouted again, the despair clear in his voice. "Stay away from her." The air thickened, a presence wrapping around her, wrapping tighter, urging her to turn back. But she wouldn't. Not now, not when she could almost see her son beyond the shadows. A flicker of light she had to reach. Suddenly, she burst into another clearing. But this one was different. Dim light flickered from small fires surrounding a grotesque altar made of twisted branches and strange bones. And there, standing near the center, was Jacob, eyes wide with terror, but unmoving as if entranced. A figure loomed beside him, its voice echoing softly like a whisper only he could hear. "Jacob!" She screamed, horror clawing at her throat. The firelight danced around the creature, revealing long, sharp claws and eyes that glowed with intent. No. Not her boy. "Run!" Charlie shouted, bursting into the clearing behind her. But Sarah was already sprinting forward, heart racing, breath catching in her throat as she reached for Jacob. "I'm here. I'm right here." But just as she stretched out her hand, darkness surged from the altar, coiling around Jacob, pulling him backward without hesitation. The thing beside him laughed, a chilling sound that resonated in her bones, hollow and cruel. "Mommy!" Jacob screamed, pain and fear lacing his voice. No! Sarah lunged, but shadows engulfed her, pulling her back. Charlie's grip on her tightened as he dragged her out. Get back! We can't help him yet. The figure laughed again as it vanished into the depths of the woods, taking her son with it. Bile rose in her throat. She turned to Charlie, desperation and fury mixing in her gaze. We have to save him. We can't leave him. I know. He answered, his voice tight. But we need to regroup. They'll come after us next. We need a plan. As they fled deeper into the forest, blood thundering in her ears, one thought consumed Sarah. Time was running out, and the entity that had corrupted Emma was still out there, hungry for more. And the endgame was just beginning. What did it want from them? Would they ever find Jacob again? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a hollow sound echoing like drums of doom. They stumbled through the underbrush, the shadows closing in as if the forest itself wept around them. She gazed into the void they fled, imagining Jacob's terrified face, locked in a macabre trance under the creature's influence. Sarah, we need to think, Charlie urged, his voice a strained whisper. The urgency in his tone cut through her frenzy, but it did nothing to quench the rising tide of despair. If we don't plan, we're as good as lost. Plan? We can't afford to waste time. She felt almost frantic, panic coursing through her like ice. They've got him. We have to go back. We can. Do you think going back will help? Those things are stronger than you think. We'll become their next victims, he shot back, catching her arm and forcing her to look at him. We need to figure out how to face them, and we can't do it alone. The realization crashed over her. Alone. How had it come to this? First Emma, now Jacob. Breathing in, Sarah pushed her sorrow deep, locking it away. No time for tears. The woods grew thicker, branches scratching at her like desperate hands trying to pull her under. They were being watched, she could feel it. Shadows darted among the trees, whispering secrets she was not meant to hear. Did you see what it looked like? Charlie asked on a shaky breath, his eyes darting in every direction. The thing that took Jacob? It wasn't human, no, she said, biting her lip. It was something else. Something much worse. But what? A sudden rustle from behind sent chills racing down her spine. Did you hear that? She asked. Charlie nodded, eyes wide as he scanned the dense thicket. Another sound, closer this time, slithered through the silence. They weren't alone. Sarah's stomach twisted at the realization. Their footsteps faltered hers, filled with dread, his, with uncertainty. They both stood frozen, the adrenaline coursing through them thick and heavy. Out of the darkness, a figure emerged again. An old woman, gaunt and cracked like old bark, steps creaking as she approached. Her wild hair captured stray moonlight, and her piercing gaze held a weight of memories that twisted the air around them. Lost, are we? She rasped, a toothless grin spreading across her face. The woods have a way of taking what they want and keeping it. Who are you? Charlie questioned, trying to mask his fear with bravado. Not important, the woman replied, her voice a whisper like wind rustling leaves. But you seek the boy. Careful now. The woods remember. Remember what? Sarah pressed, stepping closer despite Charlie's warning grip. They remember how to take, she murmured, lifting a skeletal finger towards the blackness. It will come for you. A mother's love draws it out. What do you know? Charlie snapped, panic bubbling to the surface. How do we save him? 3 steps you must take, she said, raising a crooked hand as if counting on her bony fingers. Face what you fear, seek the whisperers, and stand before the altar of shadows. Only there will you find what you seek if they don't get you first. Before they could respond, she cackled, a sound that echoed through the trees, reverberating with unseen malice, then faded into the dark. Sarah and Charlie looked at each other, their eyes questioning and desperate. "Is she crazy?" Charlie muttered, incredulity crossing his features. "She knows something," Sarah replied, the weight of the woman's words sinking in. "We have to follow her clues, but what if we don't have time for what-ifs?" He interrupted. "Either we find Jacob or we end up like Emma." The unmistakable sound of rustling leaves interrupted them again, this time more pronounced, coming from multiple directions. Their instincts screamed at them to run, but they had to stand firm. "Let us get moving," he urged, pulling her along. It was now or never. The woods were alive around them. As they pushed through the tangled growth, half-formed shadows drifted at the edges of their vision, whispering their secrets, chilling her to the bone. Each step felt heavier. Fear was palpable, a presence hanging in the air, drowning them slowly. A flicker of movement caught Sarah's attention, and her heart skipped a beat. Was that Jacob's voice? "Mommy. Help me." No, she told herself. They had to focus. They had to follow the old woman's directions, or they might lose more than just Jacob. They stumbled into a clearing. This one felt different, almost familiar, as if they had crossed into another realm. All around, strange markings decorated the trees, etchings that pulsed gently with an otherworldly light. A sudden chill swept through the air, tightening like a noose around them. The trees shivered, shadows twisting and elongating, as the echoes of laughter filled the clearing. A cruel cacophony that floated under her skin. "Run!" Sarah screamed, her instincts flaring desperately. But even as she shouted, she knew it wouldn't matter. That presence, the darker thing lurking behind the veil of trees, was here and it was ready. What knew the old woman to escape? And could they outsmart the darkness before it swallowed them whole? The echo of Sarah's voice hung in the air, swallowed by the darkness. Charlie grabbed her hand, pulling her deeper into the clearing, away from the laughter that threatened to swallow them whole. The shadows around them danced, mocking their every move. "Over there." Charlie pointed. There was a narrow path leading into an even denser part of the woods, the trees arching over as if they were trying to trap whatever ventured beneath them. "Do you think it's safe?" Sarah's voice trembled, choked by fear. "It's better than standing here," he replied, his grip tightening on her hand as he started to weave through the underbrush. The further they went, the oppressive weight of the forest seemed to smother them. The whispering grew louder, a chorus of voices melding into a single, haunting tune. Sarah could almost make out words, but their meanings eluded her. Only feelings of terror and despair dripped from the branches above. "What if it's a trap?" she gasped, the pounding of her heart drowning out the whispers. "Everything here is a trap," Charlie shot back, urgency gnawing at his resolve. "We need to keep moving." That sentiment hung thick in their lungs as the shadows began to swirl, reshaping into twisted forms that lunged for them. "Help me." The voice sliced through the night. It was Jacob. They both froze, Sarah's blood ran cold. "Mommy. Help me. Jacob." She screamed, her heart squeezed in a vice. "Where are you?" The voice echoed again, closer, engulfing her in hope. But it was quickly oversown by despair. "It's not Jacob," Charlie urged, pulling her along. "It's a trap. They're using him to lure us in." But every fiber of Sarah's being screamed to follow it. Her baby was out there, lost in the dirt and darkness, and every second felt like an eternity. Suddenly, a shriek filled the air, a horrible, piercing sound that made Charlie's grip falter. "What was that?" he wheezed. "They're here," Sarah breathed, dread curling like smoke in her throat. The air vibrated with energy, raw and wicked. Out of the brush emerged strange figures, their bodies too long, limbs that twisted like branches broken by some unseen storm. Mouths gaped wide, two wide jagged teeth glistening in the moonlight. Each face bore a vague resemblance to someone lost, Emma, Jacob, a part of every loss that clung to Sarah. "No!" she shouted, struggling free from Charlie's grasp. Their ugly beauty pulled at her. "We can't leave them. Sarah." But the shadows were already surrounding her, segments of darkness closing in, making it harder to breathe. "Face what you fear." The old woman's voice echoed through her mind, her words tattooing the air, urging her on. One of the shadows reached for her, fingers curling like spider legs. A surge of fear coursed through her veins. She had to face it, she had to defy the darkness. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, voice shaking but resolute. "Why are you doing this?" Laughter erupted from the shadows, discordant and cruel, sending shards of ice through her core. "We want what you cherish most," they hissed, an unholy chorus laced with malice. Sarah swallowed hard. "No." In that moment, a flicker of light emerged in the distance behind the shadows. Hope ignited within her. "We have to go," she shouted at Charlie, moving toward the flicker as the shadows lurched back, hissing as the light pushed them away. "Not without Jacob." He lunged for her, desperation heavy in the air. With every ounce of strength, she turned toward him. "We're getting him back." Through the uproar of the shadows, the flicker grew, and she drove herself forward. Fear threatened to consume her, but she focused on the light, on the warmth of Jacob's voice. As they charged toward the opening, darkness coiled around them again, tighter than ever. The laughter grew louder, mingling with whispers and echoes, weaving dreams and nightmares together. "What if he is lost?" Charlie's voice broke through the chaos, fear echoing in the empty night. "What if we don't find him?" But that was not a question she could entertain. What lay in the depths of the forest? Would the altar of shadows reveal the truth, or would it consume them whole? They burst through the underbrush, gasping as they entered the clearing, where the strange markings pulsed with ominous energy. "The altar," Charlie whispered, as their world threatened to collapse into chaos. Now, standing under the baleful gaze of their surroundings, symbols swirled around them like bees drawn to honey, irresistible, intoxicating, and deadly. "Face what you fear." The shadows behind them shifted. Their forms began weaving back into focus, closing in as the whispers reached a fever pitch. Time felt suspended as they confronted their deepest nightmares, each moment tinged with uncertainty, heavy with dread. This was only the beginning. The true horror awaited. And what had they awakened? The shadows lunged, their grotesque features becoming clearer, each face a chilling mockery of the lost. The laughter was relentless, echoing in Sarah's mind, drowning out her thoughts. She could feel their icy breath on her neck, hear the malicious whispers climbing into her ears. "We need to figure this out," Charlie shouted, panic cracking his voice. But what could they figure out? They were entrapped in a net spun from their own fears. The altar before them pulsed like a heartbeat, a dark omen drawing them in deeper. Symbols etched into the ground glimmered with a sickly light, and Sarah could sense that they were alive watching. "What do you want?" she demanded again, stepping forward despite Charlie's warning tug. "Your pain." The shadows spoke as one, their voice slithering under her skin. "It's what sustains us." Her heart raced. Pain was the last thing she wanted to share. "Stay back," she yelled, but it was weak. She felt the ground ripple underneath her, the symbols thrumming with a dark energy, and the shadows seized that moment. One tendril of darkness shot forward, wrapping around her wrist like a snake coiling to constrict. It tightened, sending shockwaves of ice coursing through her veins. "Let her go." Charlie yanked at the shadow, but it only tightened its grip. "No!" she gasped, fear clawing at her throat. A new sound arose, faint at first, a wail. "Jacob!" she screamed, pulling away, but it anchored her, relentless. The wail grew louder, now a chorus of cries, shadows merging to form images of children lost, all weeping for their mothers. They showed her faces she knew, faces she had abandoned, faces she had tried to forget. The shadows wore them like masks, weaving them into their grotesque dance. We carry your memories, they hissed, their grip unyielding. Charlie shouted, fight it, Sarah. Remember who you are. But his voice felt distant, as if reality itself was fraying at the edges. The cold seeped into her bones, anchoring her in terror. Jacob! She cried, and behind the shadows, she saw him a flicker, just a moment of hope piercing through the darkness. Mommy! He called with desperation. Her will surged. I'm coming! She screamed, her voice piercing the cacophony. With a feral strength, she yanked her arm free of the shadow's grip. It recoiled, howling with rage, the laughter morphing into something more sinister behind her. For a heart-stopping moment, silence engulfed them, a deceptive calm before the storm. Charlie grabbed her shoulders, desperation clear in his eyes. We have to go, now. But before they could move, the ground trembled violently, shattering the eerie stillness. The altar emitted a bone-chilling groan, and the symbols began to glow brighter. Tendrils reached out, clawing at them, renegotiating the defining barrier between life and death. Shadows flooded the altar, and the laughter erupted once more, frenzied. Face what you fear. The voice echoed again, but this time laden with an urgency that felt weighty, suffocating. Hold on. Charlie shouted as the shadows surged forward, and instinct kicked in. They raced toward the flicker of light that had seemed so close before. But the shadows were relentless. They chased, an angry swarm. As they broke through the altar's perimeter, the darkness scraped against Sarah's skin, leaving trails of anguish. We're not alone. She cried out, realizing the voices were not just hauntings of the past. With every step, they felt a presence closing in, an entity drawing power from their fear, feeding off their desperation. Bursting into the light, they shielded their eyes, but before them lay an uncharted expanse. Shadows receded for a heartbeat, revealing a pathway that coiled deeper into the woods. What lies ahead? Charlie asked, breathless, the uncertainty chilling his tone. I don't know. Sarah started, but then she saw a dark shape materializing at the far end of the path. It flickered in and out of view, as if the light itself struggled against it. Is that? Her voice trailed off. It loomed larger, a silhouette of unfathomable size, amorphous yet defined, echoing her greatest fears. And as they stood, caught between the pulsing shadows and that ominous figure, one thing was undeniable: they had awakened something that wouldn't quickly let them go. What if this is only the beginning? Sarah whispered, dread settling in her stomach. What awaited them down that path? Would they face their fears, or would the darkness consume them once again? The ominous shape loomed closer as Sarah and Charlie took a step back, a primal fear gripping their hearts. It surged forward, taking form in a shadowy mass, twisting and contorting. Get back! Charlie shouted, pulling Sarah closer, his fingers trembling against her arm. The figure pulsed, exuding a presence so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing down on them. Face me, it whispered, the voice a mix of everything they feared most: despair, regret, loss. Sarah, Charlie murmured, eyes wide with terror but filled with a hint of determination, we need to. I know what it wants. She interrupted, her own voice barely above a whisper, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. We have to confront our fears. It's connected to everything we've tried to escape. But what if confronting it only makes things worse? Charlie's eyes darted back to the shadows that writhed behind them. Better than being swept away by it. With a shaky breath, Sarah stepped forward. The ground beneath their feet trembled, insistently urging them backward, but she stood firm. The shadows flickered, hissing and swirling around them, desperate to drag them back to the altar. Give us your pain. The darkness howled, the chorus of childhood wails swelling. Only then can you be free. No, she spoke, voice rising above the cacophony. You don't own us. The figure inched closer, the mass of fear became a face, it was her reflection twisted in agony, eyes hollow, lips drawn in a perpetual scream. Sarah staggered, trapped between recognition and horror. "What are you?" "I am your fear," it replied, its voice like shards scraping glass. "I am the weight of your memories, the pain you refuse to confront." Charlie clutched her shoulder, trying to anchor her, but another tendril lashed out, coiling around him. "Don't. Fight it." She screamed, believing with all her heart that they could break free. The air swirled with biting cold. Sarah's mind raced with all the moments she had buried, guilt over Jacob's absence, fear of leaving him behind if she failed, the twisted memories of the life she could have had. Each thought ignited the shadows further, fueling their malicious dance. "Face what you've lost. It can set you free." The shadows clamored, a sinister invitation echoing around them. Sarah closed her eyes, images flashing through her mind: Jacob's laughter, his small hand slipping from hers, the loneliness that followed like a shadow. The grief was overwhelming, choking her. But from within that dark well of despair, something glimmered, a flicker of strength. The raw love for her son surged up like a wave. "Jacob needs me," she said fiercely, and with determination. She opened her eyes wide. "I won't hold on to pain anymore. I choose to live." In that moment, the shadows recoiled, shrieking in fury as an unseen force erupted from her core. Charlie gaped as a radiant light unfurled around Sarah, illuminating the darkness. The shadows hissed, retreating, and the grotesque figure began to shimmer, dissolving as the very essence of her fear was stripped away, revealing bruised memories beneath. The path became clearer, yet the air still crackled with tension. "We have to move," Charlie urged, eyes darting to the dark walls closing in again. As they took cautious steps forward, a sudden cold stopped them dead in their tracks. Out of the depths of the forest, a new shadow emerged, bigger, angrier than before, a gaping maw in the darkness. It roared with fury, a guttural sound that nearly knocked them off their feet. "You cannot escape your fate. Run!" Sarah cried, pulling Charlie away, but the ground twisted beneath them, roots and earth writhing like snakes eager to consume them. They raced down the path, the darkness pursuing, relentless and insatiable, their hearts pounding against the new horror. "Is this it?" Charlie gasped. "Are we just running from one nightmare into another?" Ahead, the forest loomed vast and endless, shadows gnarled and grotesque, hungry for despair. In the maze of terror, uncertainty gnawed at them like a beast. But Sarah felt something in the air, a heartbeat, a pulse that belonged to her and Jacob. "No. We face this." What awaited them in those depths? Were they prepared for the monstrous truth lurking in the shadows, or would darkness engulf them once more? They sprinted deeper into the forest, shadows nipping at their heels, the chilling growl echoing behind them. Panic set in as the darkness seemed to stretch out, twisting the path ahead, distorting their escape. "Charlie!" Sarah yelled, fear constricting her throat. "Keep running. Don't look back. What if we're just running in circles?" He panted, glancing nervously at the lurking shadows. "Then we'll fight again. We can't give up. Not now." They ducked beneath low-hanging branches, the cool air turning frigid as they fled. A smell of decay surrounded them, worming its way into their lungs. Yet, just as overwhelming was the sensation of watchful eyes. "Did you hear that?" Charlie paused, his brow furrowed. "Hurry!" Sarah urged, the urgency swelling in her chest. The shadow snarled louder, now closer, snapping as if it had tasted their dread. They stumbled into a small clearing, moonlight breaking through the canopy above, illuminating patches of sickly green grass. The atmosphere shifted, the air thickened, vibrating with an unnatural energy. "Why does it feel different?" Charlie whispered, scanning the clearing for any sign of sanctuary. As the last echoes of their footsteps faded, pieces of fog coalesced into twisted forms at the edges of the clearing. Figures, resembling once familiar faces from their past, glided silently, their hollow eyes filled with sorrow and rage. "Join us," they seemed to murmur, voiceless echoes of torment that sliced through the air. "Sarah, what are they?" Charlie's voice wavered, anxiety palpable as they took halting steps backward, away from the apparitions. "Ghosts of regret," she breathed, the realization hitting her like a cold wave. "Memories we've desperately tried to bury. They won't let us pass without facing them." One figure surged forward, resembling Jacob, his eyes dark and mournful. Sarah's heart seized. "Jacob," she whispered, a fresh wave of grief crashing over her. "Mommy," the apparition echoed, a heartbreaking intonation that twisted the blade deeper. "Why did you leave?" "No. I didn't leave. I tried to be free." The ghost interjected, shadows dancing around it, tormenting her. "You can't be free without facing what you lost." Charlie gripped Sarah's arm, his own mind racing. "This is a trick, Sarah. We can't trust them. They're not here to hurt me," she cried, desperation mixing with anguish. "They're reminders." Glimpses of old memories flooded her mind, Jacob laughing, then crying. The pain, the guilt, all manifesting into the shadows surrounding them. Here, without the allure of the past's blindness, stood only the truth. "You let us go. You're the one who walked away." Jacob's specter advanced, tears shimmering like rain. "Will you come back to us? I lost, but I'm still here." Sarah's heart raced. She stepped forward, her resolve igniting. "I'm choosing to live. Jacob needs me now, everywhere and all at once." In that moment, the shadows circled closer, tightening around her like a vice. The air crackled with raw energy as she felt the weight of what she had left behind. "Face your pain." The choking whispers surged, pressing on Sarah's mind. And then, a flicker of light escaped her heart, pushing against the dark that smothered them. The apparitions screamed, a cacophony of voices blending into the rising tide of her will. "No more." Suddenly, everything began to shatter. An explosion of light and darkness reverberated through the clearing. The memories disintegrated into fragments of mist, but the raw emotion surged within her, forcing her to confront the shadows. Caught in the center of the devastation, Charlie grabbed Sarah's hand tightly. "We can't lose this moment." Behind them, the original shadow rumbled, anger surging as it transformed once more, bigger, angrier, now swelled with their fears. "Face me. You cannot escape what you truly are." It roared, an unwavering embodiment of despair reformed, yet Sarah felt something else rising within her, the primal instinct to protect, to endure. "Together, Charlie. We face it," she shouted, and together, they stepped towards the gaping void of darkness. Just as they reached the precipice of confrontation, the ground quaked beneath their feet, a voice sharper than glass echoed, "You cannot escape even when you want to." In the depths of chaos, did they have the strength to rise, or were they already entangled in the web of despair? What truth lay hidden in the shadows, waiting to envelop them once again? The pressure of darkness bore down like a fist, squeezing the breath from Sarah's lungs. She locked eyes with Charlie, who was trembling beside her, error etched across his features. The shadow loomed larger, its growl echoing coldly through the clearing, a tormentor hungry for their fear. "Stay focused," Sarah shouted, willing herself to believe in the light inside her. "We can't let it take us." As the shadow's form shifted, Sarah saw glimpses of twisted visions, broken dreams, lost hopes, and the faces of those who had suffered for her choices. Panic choked her resolve, but she fought against it. "Remember who you are," she urged both herself and Charlie. "We faced our pasts, let us not let it consume us." Around them, the apparitions wailed, their voices mingling with the shadow's growl, creating a chilling symphony of despair. It was all too overwhelming. Sarah felt as though she might drown in the suffocating tide of grief. "Can we even win against this?" Charlie's voice shook as he instinctively stepped closer to her. "It knows us, knows our weaknesses. That's why we have to fight back," Sarah screamed. See the truth in the clarity. Our love for Jacob is stronger. The shadow lunged, and the ground beneath them roiled, like swirling black waters. Instinctively, they leapt aside, heartbeats pounding in tandem with the darkness. Together! She cried, disentangling her fingers from Charlie's for a moment as she reached deep into her own pain, channeling every regret, every tear, turning it into purpose. When we loved, we lost everything, she shouted into the abyss, her voice breaking but steady. But when we loved, we lived. We can't be afraid. The shadow hovered, sensing a crack in their armor. Just then, the apparitions flickered. Jacob's face emerged once more, sorrow transforming into something softer. "Mommy," he said, a hint of warmth in the icy atmosphere. "You have to believe in what we were, not what we lost." "Jacob." Sarah's breath hitched. "I am so sorry." Her heart clenched again, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. But within this pain, something shifted. She felt the memories intertwining, the laughter, the hugs, the fleeting happiness amid the struggle. Behind them, Charlie hesitated, his face twisted in conflict. "Are we really ready to forgive? Forgiveness is our way through," she shouted. "It's the only way." As they stood their ground, they felt the vibration intensify. The growl of the shadow turned to a furious roar, shaking the very air around them. The darkness threatened to swallow them as the apparitions blended with the pulse of the night. "Face the truth!" The voices yelled, an echo of desperation that resonated with every fiber of her being. With a final breath, Sarah drew on all her inner strength. "We confront our ghosts now," she yelled, her voice ringing clear and bold. In a flash of pain and light, they surged forward together, but just as they thought they touched the dark core of the shadow, the ground cracked open beneath them. A chasm yawned wide, pulling at their feet like a ravenous beast. "Charlie!" Sarah screamed, grasping for him. But the depths of the crack reached out, an insatiable void brimming with anguish. "I want to let go," he bellowed back, but the chasm trembled with purpose, and tendrils of darkness slithered up around them, threatening to separate them forever. As they fought the pull, voices rose around them, sinister whispers of those they had failed, each tapping into the raw heart of their fear. "Together, Sarah!" Charlie shouted, sweat dripping down his face. "We can't let this consume us. Let us break it together." They slammed their hands together, and an explosion of light erupted, forcing back the darkness. But the shadows wavered, becoming more furious, and what lay beneath the crack began to bubble ominously, like dark water boiling. "Do you hear that?" Charlie called out, eyes wide with new fear. "What's happening?" But the rumbling of the abyss drowned out his words, the foreboding growls transforming into a higher pitch, a melody of terror rising from the depths. "Sarah!" he shouted, panic creeping. "Back in!" In that moment, something thick and dark spiraled up from the crack, twisting and writhing, shape-shifting in ways Sarah hadn't seen yet. "An even greater horror lies below," she whispered, fear lighting her eyes. We've only just begun to scratch the surface before she could say more. The deepest void of the chasm erupted, and they were both suddenly pulled in. What would they face in the darkness below? And would they survive the confrontation that awaited? The darkness swallowed them whole, and Sarah felt herself falling, plummeting through a void that felt both timeless and endless. A cold rush engulfed her, and she struggled against the fear that threatened to suffocate her. But somewhere inside, a flicker of hope remained, a glimmer that urged her forward. Then the light returned, not bright but a soft glow, sickly green, illuminating the contours of a vast cavern that seemed to stretch infinitely. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like jagged teeth, and shadows danced along the walls, whispering secrets only the darkness could unearth. "Sarah!" Charlie's voice broke through the haze, and she turned to see him land beside her, wide-eyed and breathless. The terror that had marked his expression was now mingled with determination. "We're in it now. We need to be strong." The cavern pulsed with an ominous energy. What do we do? Sarah's voice trembled, but she steadied herself, knowing that fear would not help them. Confront it. Like the old woman said, Charlie insisted, glancing around nervously. Face what you fear. Right. We need to find Jacob, she replied, the thought of her son fueling her resolve. He must be down here. Focus on your love for him, Sarah. It's our shield, Charlie said, cherishing the idea as a lifeline. The shadows retreated slightly, as if sensing their unity, a consciousness lurking behind the darkness, a feeling of being watched. Slowly, they moved deeper into the cavern, their hearts pounding together, the uncertainty of what lay ahead drumming loudly against their chests. Where are you, Jacob? Sarah called, her voice reverberating in the empty expanse, echoed by the cavern's cold walls. We're coming for you. And then they heard it, piercing through the dark, a familiar voice. Mommy. Jacob's cry echoed like a haunting melody, filled with both desperation and warmth. Help me. Jacob. Sarah's heart tightened. It came from further inside the cavern, drawing her in like a moth to flame. We're coming, baby. Hold on. They pressed forward, shadows grappling at their ankles, swirling with malicious intent. As she took each step, her resolve strengthened with memories of Jacob, the joy in his laughter, the warmth of his small hand wrapped around hers. The shadows coiled and writhed, voices swirling around them like a tempest. Your love is a weakness. They screamed, intertwining the echoes of lost souls with their own torment. No. It's our strength. Charlie shouted with a raw emotion that cut through the darkness. We can break you. Sarah's blood ran hot in her veins. You don't have power over us. We refuse to be afraid. The shadowy figures lunged, their twisted forms morphing faster than the eye could perceive. A dark mass broke from the depths, swirling angrily. It unfurled in a grotesque mockery of a child, Jacob's silhouette standing still, his face shrouded in shadows. It echoed his pleas, yet twisted it with malice. Help me, Mommy. I'm scared. Jacob. Sarah shrieked, pain lacing each letter. No. It's a trap. She could sense the creature trying to manipulate her grief, trying to draw her sacrifice. But this time, she would not relent. The echoes of joy surged deep inside her, memories flickering bright, Jacob's first steps, his giggles, the smell of his hair after a bath, the way he hugged her with all his little strength. Please, come back to me. She cried, the words erupting from her like an explosion of emotion. With a swift movement, she stepped toward the shadow, desperate and resolute. You are not my son. She declared. Your pain cannot bind me. I will not give you my love as a weapon. The shadow recoiled, its onslaught faltering under her confident light. You lie. It hissed, rage pulsing like a thunderstorm, and Sarah felt its weight pulling at her. Love cannot be taken. Charlie shouted, his voice thawing the fear that gripped them both. We have the power to break your hold. And together, they screamed Jacob's name, uniting their voices, their grief, their resolve, and their love pooling into a radiance that surged against the darkness. The cavern brightened, the shadows shrieked, as they pressed on, pushing through the whirlpool of despair. As they drew closer to the shadow that was Jacob, Sarah reached out, and the figure hesitated, flickering between the lost child and the tormenting darkness that fed off fear. Jacob. Fight. We're right here. She urged, the warmth of her heart pulsing with an undeniable force. The dark form shimmered, wavering between the two. Jacob's true laugh broke through the gloom, superimposing the shadow's cowl. Mommy. Echoed in clarity, and the twisted visage cracked, revealing a glimpse of innocence. Come back to us. Sarah shouted again, her heart bursting with hope, pouring love freely, resonating with warmth that surged around her. You have to come back, baby. The shadows can't hold you. Charlie shouted, with their united shouts, the shadow screeched, and the cavern shook violently, a fissure forming beneath its hooves. "You will not take him." It twisted and thrashed, but they pressed on, arms entwined, hearts alight. In that moment, light burst forth from Sarah's hands, a blinding wave that spread into the shadows. The shadows shrieked, their forms warping as Jacob's real figure emerged, radiating warmth and affection that consumed the air. "Mommy!" he cried again, his face now clear. He rushed into Sarah's arms, solid and real, and she held him, tears streaming with joy, but the shadows were closing in, furious and resolute. The cavern trembled, and Charlie shouted, "We need to go. This place will collapse." With Jacob securely in her embrace, Sarah turned to Charlie, their eyes locking in the understanding of a shared purpose. They had fought darkness, now they had to emerge into the light. "Let us escape together," Sarah yelled, racing towards the path from which they had come. Jacob's little hands gripped her tightly. As shadows clawed at them, they heard the howls reverberate in despair, losing their grip on reality. Still, the darkness shrieked, trying to capture them, lurching desperately as they charged toward the exit. With every stride, the maw of darkness unfurled behind them, darkness pressuring like the deepest sorrow attempting to reclaim what could not be. But they were a family, united and fierce. They surged forward, and the light at the cavern's mouth shone brighter, beckoning them. The entrance erupted before them, an explosion of brightness, as they leapt into the light together, symbolizing hope, renewal, and love. They hit the ground outside in an all-consuming blaze of warmth, the cool night air wrapping around them like a protective shroud. Breathless and trembling, they found themselves surrounded by the peaceful forest. The shadows faded away, losing strength against their love. Jacob, Sarah sobbed, cupping his face as he blinked up at her, his eyes wide and bright. The forest felt alive, the stillness now a balm, woven with whispers that promised healing and solace. "Mommy, I was so scared," Jacob squeaked, his small arms wrapping around her tightly. "I know, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry." She kissed his forehead, gratitude bursting within her, full of relief and love. Charlie stood beside them, gasping slightly, the gravity of their escape weighing heavily. "We're safe," he breathed, relief washing over him. "Together, we faced it," Sarah remarked, the weight of all they'd been through illuminating their bond, carving symbols of unity in their hearts. "Together we're stronger." The sun began its rise, painting the horizon in warm hues, and the bond they'd forged now shimmered in the golden morning light. Their lives had been forever changed, but one thing remained undeniably clear: love conquers the darkness. And as they walked home together, Sarah knew that no shadows could ever claim her family again. They had faced the abyss, and emerged victorious, embodying the strength of love in a world that once threatened to tear them apart. Through the pain and suffering, their roots intertwined, a family stronger than fear, tied together in hope and unity. This was their new beginning, and it shimmered with all the promise of healing laughter and joy. Now, as they stepped into a new dawn, the shadows were nothing but faint whispers behind them, echoes of an old story left to fade. They would build new memories, learn from the past, and in each other's arms, they would find safety once more. But before you go, there's something you have to do now. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions, your theories about the ending, everything. We want to hear from you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Go, go, go!